My name is Mark, 34M, and my wife, Jessica, 32F, has just turned my life into something out of a bad soap opera. We've been married for 7 years, and I thought we were solid. No, I knew we were solid. Or at least that's what I let myself believe. Turns out I was wrong. We met at a friend's barbecue when I was 25, and she was 23. Jessica was the kind of woman who could light up a room. She was outgoing, funny, and always had something witty to say. I was quieter, more reserved, but she brought me out of my shell. We balanced each other, or so I thought. Over the years, I noticed little things. She was never big on admitting when she was wrong. She twisted the truth when it suited her, and she had a way of making me feel like I was being paranoid anytime I questioned her about anything. But I let those things slide because I loved her. You tell yourself that little lies don't mean anything, that no marriage is perfect, that trust means giving your spouse the benefit of the doubt. Then, a few months ago, things started feeling off. Jessica was more distant, always on her phone, and quick to pick fights over nothing. She complained about things she never used to care about, how I chewed too loudly, how I left dishes in the sink, how I worked too much. She even started dressing up when she was just hanging out at home. I remember one day I came home early, and she was in full makeup wearing a tight dress just to watch TV. I joked about it and she laughed it off, saying she just wanted to feel pretty. But I felt it in my gut. Something wasn't right, and I had no idea how right I was. One random Tuesday, Jessica mentioned that we had a plumbing issue in the guest bathroom. "The sink's been acting up," she said casually over breakfast. "I'll call someone to fix it." I barely registered it. I was running late for work and just muttered, "Yeah, sure, sounds good." I didn't think about it again until later that day when I texted her during my lunch break. Me, "Hey, how's your day?" Jessica, "Busy." The plumber came by. It was a mess, but he fixed it. That was it. No details, nothing unusual. I went back to my day, but something kept nagging at me. When I got home that evening, I noticed Jessica seemed different. She was in an unusually good mood, almost giddy. She had cooked my favorite meal, something she only did when she was either really happy or feeling guilty. "Wow, what's the occasion?" I joked, kissing her on the cheek. She smirked. "Can't a wife just do something nice for her husband?" That answer should have been enough. But as we ate, I casually asked, "So, what was wrong with the sink?" She blinked. "Huh, the sink. You said it was a mess. What was wrong with it?" "Oh, the pipe was clogged. He had to replace some parts." I nodded, pretending not to notice the way she avoided my eyes. Something was definitely off. The next day, while she was in the shower, I did something I never thought I'd do. I checked our home security camera footage. We had cameras set up outside, mostly for safety reasons. I wasn't expecting to find anything, but then I saw him. A tall, muscular guy in a blue uniform. He arrived at 11:20 a.m. At 11:26, Jessica opened the door. She was in a silk robe. A silk robe. And here's the kicker. He didn't leave until 2:47 p.m. My stomach dropped as I stared at the timestamp. Over 3 hours? For a clogged sink? I scrubbed through the footage, my hands shaking. The camera angle didn't show much. It was positioned near the front door, so I could only see when he arrived and when he left. But what really got me was the way Jessica was acting. When she opened the door, she leaned against the frame, tilting her head in a way I recognized. It was her flirty stance. I'd seen her do it before, back when we first started dating. Then, at 2:47 p.m., when he finally left, Jessica stepped outside to watch him go. As he walked to his truck, she smiled and did a little wave. It was the kind of wave you give someone when you want to see them again. I felt like I couldn't breathe. I needed more proof. I went through our call logs. There it was, a call to a local plumbing service the day before. But here's where it got weird. I Googled the company. It was real. But when I called and asked for a copy of our service receipt, claiming I needed it for our home records, the guy on the phone seemed confused. I don't have a record of anyone coming to your address," he said. I froze. "Are you sure? My wife called yesterday to book the appointment." The guy double-checked. "Nope, nothing. Maybe she called a different company, but she hadn't. This was the number from her call history. So who the hell was the guy who showed up at my house? I sat there, staring at my phone, my mind racing. If the plumbing company had no record of an appointment, then that meant Jessica hadn't called a plumber. She had called him. And whoever he was, he had spent over 3 hours in my house with my wife while I was at work. I felt sick. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I knew I needed to confront her. But I also knew that if I didn't have enough proof, she'd just lie. Jessica had a way of twisting the truth until I doubted my own reality. So I decided to dig deeper. That evening, while she was in the shower, I went through her phone. I know I shouldn't have, but at that point I needed answers. She had recently deleted her call history. Of course she had. But she forgot one thing, her text messages. I scrolled through and found a thread from a number that wasn't saved in her contacts. The messages had been mostly wiped, but one stood out. Sent the morning of the plumbing visit. Jessica, door will be unlocked. Come in like you're supposed to be here. I felt the blood drain from my face. She knew I'd checked the cameras. She planned everything. I sat on the couch, gripping my phone so tightly my knuckles turned white. My mind was a storm. Anger, disbelief, heartbreak. I wasn't even sure how I'd get the words out, but I knew one thing. I couldn't let this slide. Jessica came out of the shower, wrapped in a towel, humming to herself like she hadn't just shattered my entire reality. She stopped when she saw me sitting there, staring at my phone. "What's wrong?" she asked, feigning concern. I took a deep breath. "Who is he, Jessica?" Her eyes flickered just for a second, but I caught it. "Who?" she asked, playing dumb. "The plumber you let into our house. The one you told to come in like he was supposed to be here." I held up my phone. "The one you texted." Her face turned pale. For the first time, she looked genuinely caught off guard. But Jessica was a natural liar. She recovered fast. "Oh my God, Mark, are you seriously spying on me?" she snapped, crossing her arms. "This is insane. You're digging through my phone now? This is a huge invasion of privacy." I almost laughed. Classic Jessica. Deflect, distract, go on the offensive. "Cut the crap," I said, my voice dangerously calm. "I called the plumbing company. They have no record of an appointment. So I'll ask you again. Who was he?" She hesitated, just for a second, and that hesitation told me everything. Then, she sighed dramatically and rolled her eyes. "Fine." She threw her hands up. "You want the truth?" The sink wasn't broken. I made that up. I just stared at her. "Why?" she scoffed. "Because I knew you'd freak out if you found out I was having a friend over." "A friend?" My blood boiled. "So you lied? Deleted your messages? And let some random guy into our house while I was at work because he's just a friend?" She glared at me. "Oh, please. You're being dramatic. He's just someone I met at the gym. We talk. We hang out." "Hang out?" I repeated, my voice sharp. "For 3 hours? In a silk robe?" Her expression flickered again, this time with frustration. "Oh my God. You are so paranoid. Maybe if you actually paid attention to me instead of always being at work, I wouldn't need to make friends elsewhere." That hit me like a slap. She was blaming me. I clenched my jaw. "Are you sleeping with him?" She laughed. Cold, dismissive sound. "You're ridiculous. That's not a no, Jessica." She just stared at me, her lips pressed together, like she was deciding what to say next. And in that silence, I had my answer. Jessica stared at me, her arms crossed, jaw clenched. I could see the wheels turning in her head, trying to figure out how to spin this in her favor. But I was done playing games. "I'll ask one last time," I said, my voice low and steady. "Are you sleeping with him?" She scoffed, rolling her eyes. "I already told you, Mark. You're making this a bigger deal than it is. Answer the question." Silence. Then, she sighed dramatically and muttered, "It's not what you think." That was all I needed to hear. I stood up so fast the couch shifted beneath me. "Get out." She blinked. "What?" "You heard me. Get out." Go stay with your friend, or whoever the hell you want. But you're not sleeping under this roof tonight. Jessica's face twisted in shock. Then fury. You're kicking me out? Over nothing. I let out a bitter laugh. Nothing? You planned this. You deleted your messages. You lied to my face. And you still won't even admit what you did. So yeah, Jessica, I want you out. For the first time, I saw something close to panic in her eyes. I think she had convinced herself she could gaslight me into dropping it, like she had so many times before. Mark, come on, she said, her voice suddenly softer, like she was trying a different tactic. You're overreacting. Let's just sit down and talk. I shook my head. No. I don't want to talk. I don't want to hear more lies. I want you to pack a bag and leave. She stared at me, lips pressed together, like she was debating whether to argue or comply. Then her expression hardened. Fine, she spat. But don't come crying to me when you realize you threw away a perfectly good marriage over a misunderstanding. I didn't respond. I just watched as she stormed into the bedroom, slamming drawers and throwing clothes into a bag. I should have felt victorious. Instead, I felt hollow. Jessica left that night. She slammed the door so hard the walls shook. But I didn't flinch. I just stood there, staring at the empty space where she had been, listening to the sound of her car screeching out of the driveway. And then, silence. For the first time in 7 years, I was alone in my own home. I sank onto the couch, numb. I should have been angry. Maybe I was. But mostly I just felt drained. I didn't sleep much that night. Every time I closed my eyes, my brain replayed everything. Her lies, the way she smiled at the so-called plumber, the way she refused to give me a straight answer. It wasn't just the cheating that got to me. It was the fact that she thought I was stupid enough to believe her. By morning, I had made up my mind. I wasn't going to be one of those guys who got strung along while his wife played games. I wanted answers and I wanted out. First, I needed proof. I called the plumbing company again just to triple-check. Same answer, no record of an appointment. Then, I checked our phone records through our shared account. Jessica had deleted her call logs, but she forgot about mine. There it was, her mysterious number. The friend from the gym. I copied the number and did a reverse search. And what I found made my stomach churn. My hands shook as I stared at the screen. The reverse search had pulled up a name. Ryan Carter. Not a plumber. Not a gym friend. Just some random guy. I had no idea who he was, but I was about to find out. I copied the number and called. It rang twice before a voice answered, casual, unsuspecting. Hello. I took a deep breath. Ryan. A pause. Then, cautiously, yeah. Who's this? I almost laughed at how easy this was. Mark. Jessica's husband. Silence. A long, tense silence. Then he hung up. I stared at my phone, my pulse hammering. That reaction told me everything. I called again. Straight to voicemail. I called again. Still nothing. That was it. That was all I needed. Jessica had cheated. And now, she and her not-so-secret lover were scrambling. My next call was to a lawyer. I wasn't wasting any more time. Jessica had made her choices, now it was my turn. I met with a divorce lawyer the next day. I laid everything out. The lies, the deleted messages, the security footage, the fake plumber. The lawyer nodded along, taking notes, then leaned back in his chair. This is pretty open and shut, he said. You've got enough here to file on grounds of adultery. Hearing the word adultery made my stomach turn. Even though I knew, deep down, that's what had happened, having it put in legal terms made it feel so much more real. But I didn't hesitate. Let's do it. Jessica's reaction. When I told Jessica I was filing for divorce, she laughed. She actually laughed. Wow, Mark, you're seriously throwing away our marriage over a little jealousy? She said, arms crossed like she was the victim. I was done playing her games. I showed her the phone records, the security footage. I told her I called Ryan. Her face fell. Then, in true Jessica fashion, she doubled down. You are so insecure. I was going to tell you about Ryan, but I knew you'd act like this, so Stop. I cut her off. I don't care what excuse you come up with. We're done. I already spoke to a lawyer. Her mouth opened, then closed. For the first time, I saw something close to fear in her eyes. Not because she was losing me, but because she was losing the security of our marriage, our house, our finances, the life we built. She stormed out that night. I changed the locks the next morning. It's been a few months since Jessica walked out of my life for good. The divorce papers are filed, and I've barely heard from her since, except for a couple of bitter texts where she accused me of overreacting and ruining our marriage. Funny. I thought she was the one who did that. Ryan, he disappeared. She never mentioned him again, and I never bothered to find out what happened between them. Maybe they're together. Maybe he bailed on her the second things got messy. Either way, it's not my problem. I won't lie, those first few weeks were rough. I kept catching myself expecting to hear her in the next room or to see her name pop up on my phone. But every time I remembered the lies, the manipulation, the complete lack of remorse, I felt nothing but relief. I dodged a bullet. Looking back, I see now that Jessica had been showing me who she really was for a long time. I just didn't want to see it. So, if there's one thing I've learned from all of this, it's this: trust your gut. If something feels off, it probably is. And if someone keeps lying to your face, believe their actions, not their words. I'm finally at peace. And for the first time in years, I feel free. Thank you for staying with me. This crazy journey is finally over and I'm ready for what's next. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any more interesting stories. And leave a comment with what you would do in this situation. See you in the next videos.